Hi, welcome back to Hydroponics Daily with me, Dr. Russell Sharp. Today we're talking about air movement in your grow room or your glass house, and it's an area where beginners often overlook it in favor of concentrating on getting the lighting or the nutrients right, but it's a massive area. It's really important, and stick around to the end because I've got two really good points of why LED growers, people using LED lights especially, need to ensure good airflow. So as I said, airflow is a particular issue that's neglected by beginners, and that's because you think, I've got some air movement in the grow room, and you think it's only there to just like move the air around and things like that. But it's actually crucial for ensuring that stale air that's low in CO2 because plants have photosynthesized it, high in oxygen, and very high in water, it's very humid, moves away from the leaves as quickly as possible. And there's two types of leaves in plants. There's simple leaves and compound leaves. Simple leaves are the ones that are just look like a normal leaf, and then compound leaves are separated out into leaflets or serrated. So like a hemp leaf is a compound leaf, ash compound leaf, whereas a simple leaf would be like an oak leaf. An oak and simple leaves, any crop that's got simple leaves like basil struggles to get air movement away from it through normal flux of air around the plant. And so air movement is crucial for getting that stale air away. So around the leaf, the humidity is very high because the stomata are open, evaporation is occurring, and it can actually, if you've got 100% humidity in your grow room, if you've got light hitting the leaf, you can actually get more than 100% humidity around that leaf, and that is a really good way of stimulating fungal diseases, and we definitely don't want to do that in a grow room. You could also unsettle pests in your grow room by having good airflow. So aphids would struggle to land on your plants if you've got good airflow. Mites will struggle to join plants together with their webs, but especially fungus gnats. They're really bad at flying, and they will not be able to settle on your growing media if you've got good airflow over your media. And then top tip, your outlet fan, I would always position it near the ground, because then you can, as well as hoovering up lots of air, stale air, and getting it out of your grow room, fungus gnats will get caught in the flow and go whoop, sucked into the outlet, and they can't get in the inlet because hopefully you've got a filter on that. So there's a top tip: always put your outlet fan near the ground to get rid of the fungus gnats, and then you'll hoover up a lot of fungus gnats doing that. And I say there are lots of different fans to choose from, but the inlet and outlet fans are not good for air movement. You might think they're pumping in lots of air, and they are. Some of them are very powerful, but they're not good for air movement. For those, you need like the office fan type fans, and you can get really large ones. You can get ones that attach to the grow tent themselves, or ones that sit on stands. In vertical farming, they normally use smaller fans attached to the trays, and some of these can be the same fans that are used in computers, and so the low voltage fans. It depends on your system and how you're doing it. One massive important issue for safety, though, is making sure that your plugs are not, and your sockets and your extension leads are not just left on the floor of your grow room. Because if you've got an irrigation tank and that fails, or a pipe fails, or a joint fails, that's a massive electrocution hazard right there. So that's why when you see professional boards used for hydroponics, they're never on the floor. Always make sure that they're on the wall or high up where they're not going to get water. And that can be difficult because the leads can be very short that they're supplied with. Another safety issue is that they often come in a form that you have to assemble in the grow room. And if you don't attach that cover to the front of the fan, then you could hurt yourself because some of these fans are very powerful. And if you got your hand in them, as we said in the last podcast, accidents happen. You get hydroponic fails, but make sure that you don't have a safety fail, because that really would be an epic fail. Other types of fans, you get ones in commercial polytunnels that have evaporative cooling, and so they evaporate water, and that's almost like a cheap version of a air conditioning unit. Air conditioning units themselves will have fans in that will move air around, and dehumidifiers will have fans in them that move the air around. But you can't rely on them alone, and you must not position them close to a plant unless you've got good airflow, because a dehumidifier is going to be pumping out very, very dry air. An air conditioning unit reducing, putting air in that's very, very cold, and the first plant that gets to will not be getting the same air as the plant at the other end of the grow room unless you've got good airflow. So that's another good reason for good airflow around your room, because it harmonizes the air, makes everything uniform. And in a lot of crops, uniformity is the most important thing. You know, the people who sell ornamental plants for B&Q and places like that, and big box stores like Home Depot, their number one parameter is uniformity. And in a lot of professional horticulture, you know, food and things like that, cut flowers, uniformity is key. So I said LED lights. There's two crucial aspects where it comes to LED lights, and air movement is crucial. The first is that LED lights don't produce anywhere near the same amount of heat as a sodium luminaire does. And that means that the leaf transpiration, evaporation is not being driven by the light as much. This can lead to issues that are associated with lack of transpiration, like poor growth, calcium deficiencies, and things like this. So rather than whacking up your calcium levels, you could just increase your airflow levels around the LED lights. And the other thing that's critical is that LED lights need to have good cooling to ensure their lifespan is prolonged and that their output remains high. They degrade extremely fast when they're run at 100% of their capacity at high temperatures. So places like Australia, LED lights have a much lower lifespan than they do in the north of Scotland for this reason. So if you can cool your LED lights by producing the airflow, you can increase the length of time they're producing that high level of light. Now, the price of LED lights is crashing. They'll probably crash even further in the UK because of tariffs in the US, but in the US, LED lights will probably increase in price dramatically because of the Chinese tariffs. So you want to increase their lifespan. So make sure they don't overheat, especially in the summer. Anything over 30 degrees C will be adding to the temperature around the LED lights, which will be far higher. So think about that when you're designing your grow room. Make sure you've got enough airflow, and make sure that airflow is around your plants, around the grow media to get rid of those fungus gnats, and around the lights to increase their lifespan. That's been Hydroponics Daily for today. Thank you very much for listening, and see you again tomorrow.